2013 GTR came in for some basic tweaks on the dyno. Nothing crazy with this one. Stock injectors, 2 3/4 inch intakes, not full 3 inch, full exhaust. Got it on the dyno, made our passes, got it dialed in. Not bad, almost 560 wheel and 564 foot-pounds of torque, 18 pounds of boost on 91, ready to full send. Good morning, everybody. We have a really cool Z32. It has original 33,970 miles, really low, completely stock, unmodified. And today we're doing an inspection on it and also a diagnosis. It is misfiring. So it came into us misfiring. Client wants us to figure out, of course, and fix it. So here we are. This car is a production date of January 1990. A lot of the die-hard Z32 guys know. Some of the 89 model year production cars did have soft valves. Pretty sure this isn't our issue. Most of the 90 cars were pretty good. I think it was after July of 89 that these didn't have the soft valve issue. So what we've gone ahead and done is looked at everything. We had this car on the rack. We'll get it back on the rack. Everything is really beautiful. There are no leaks whatsoever on this thing, even with the valve covers being the original silicone. That's all nice and dry. First thing we did is we've put in the new style PTU. So, or we should say the TSB fix that Nissan had. Basically in 90, Nissan recalled the original Mitsubishi PTU, the power transistor unit. This car was still outfitted with it. So they had issues with these, apparently causing misfires. We've gone ahead and installed the update. So it comes with the sub harness and the updated PTU. So basically in 91 plus, this all pretty much came standard. You still had this adapter harness, which is kind of ugly. So we're gonna end up getting rid of this if we're gonna keep this. But it turns out that this thing was not causing the misfires. I have seen cars run this till this day with no issues. So what we have figured out is cylinders 1, 3, and 6 are not running at all. We know it has spark, so we checked for spark. Very common issue with these. It has the early injectors, which are very susceptible to internal corrosion. Back when we had MTBE in the fuel here in California, we saw tons of failure. There was something in that fuel that was just eating away and getting through and damaging the coil in the actual portion of the injector. With that being said, you don't see too many cars with the early style injectors. What we're gonna do is we're gonna ohm test all of the injectors, specifically 1, 3, and 6 to see where it is. These are high impedance injectors. So typically you want your resistance to be right around 12 to 14. If it's way under that or it's way above that, then you know that there's an issue with that injector. So that's what we're gonna be doing next. We're gonna verify that our injectors are bad. The best recommendation would be to install the late style fuel injectors in these things using an adapter, something from Jim Wolf Technology. They make a nice little adapter kit that allows you to run the late style fuel injector into the early fuel rail. And we'll end up, of course, changing the pigtail connectors and get this thing updated. A few things that we noted, because again, it's all original. You know, it has the old school red coolant temp sensor. Definitely would be a good idea to replace that. We also have the original fuel pressure regulator and damper. You know, these are made of rubber on the inside and they can tear. It's a good idea to get those replaced just to stay on top of all that stuff. Overall, the rubber is in good condition. The fuel hoses are in good condition. Somebody has gone ahead and replace the fuel filter. It is a non-Nissan, it's an aftermarket fuel filter. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to get the hoses replaced, change out the regulator, the damper, put new Nissan fuel hose, and keeping the factory fuel injection clamps. I like these. Yes, you have to tighten them up over time, but they are really good clamps. They don't tear into the hose, and that's the most important thing when you're dealing with fuel hoses. You don't want a worm clamp style because you can tear into it. Other thing that we noted is the brake master cylinder is starting to sweat and leak a little bit. So you can see that getting behind the brake booster, and you can see the corrosion building up on the body of this bad boy. So we'll go ahead. We'll also end up doing a little tune-up on this bad boy. Spark plugs. It's got the original radiator cap. We'll go ahead and test this, make sure that's in good condition. Be a great idea to pressure test the cooling system. Again, everything's old, original. The rubber is still pretty soft, but the car hasn't really been driven much. So it sits most of the time. If the client wants to go out and drive it, we want to make sure that he isn't going to have some sort of premature failure, even though the rubber is in good condition. So we'll pressure test it, get it up to temperature after the fact. Still has the stock air box, we'll take a look at how the stock panel filters look. The one big thing that we don't have any service record of is the timing belt. We do know that the accessory belts have been replaced because they are pretty fresh and new. They don't have the old school Nissan logo on the belt themselves, but the timing belt, we have no idea. Sometimes you can kind of look and see if you have any witness marks on some of the timing belt hardware. There is no sticker that's been affixed anywhere telling you if the service has been completed. And by the looks of everything, I'm going to guess that it's probably never been done. So even though the car has really low miles, it's 33,970, it's possible that nobody ever did it, right? So biggest concern, of course, I've never seen a belt specifically go bad from age, but it's a good idea to replace it. The other thing is those cam seals. They're rubber, and the rubber can get hard over time, and it can wear a groove into the crank and wear a groove into your intake cam gears and your exhaust gears. So typically we see the issue with the intake cam gears. If you don't replace it, a lot of the times you would get a general shop that would just replace the timing belt and the water pump. They wouldn't replace the cam seals or the crank seal. So the car figure probably went 120,000 miles, never had the cam seals replaced. You would end up with a leak, typically at the intake cam gear, because it wore a groove into that cam gear. So we'll go ahead and recommend all that just to make sure this thing lives easily another 35 plus years again. So I don't see this car getting up there with miles, so it'll be really, really cool to keep this thing in as-is condition.